The title of today's podcast is Understanding is Appreciation That Leads to Love. With each podcast, I ask you to focus on a divine quality or a divinely inspired quality. Today, I ask you to focus on divine light. Remember, the Course tells us that you are light. So light is one of your attributes given to you by God. We'll focus on Chapter 7, The Gifts of the Kingdom, Section 5, Healing and the Changelessness of Mind, paragraphs 8 through 11. Starting with paragraph 8, how would you describe your mind in heaven? Your heavenly mind is whole and changeless, possessing the total awareness of knowledge. Accepting your changeless mind is the same as accepting what? It's the same as accepting that you are forever just as God created you. How did you deceive yourself into believing that you do not have a changeless mind? At the separation, you manufactured an ego that tells you that you have a perceptual mind that is always changing. What can you do to enable you to change your perceptual mind and accept that your brother still possesses his true changeless mind in heaven, just as you still possess your changeless mind? What you can do is heal your brother. Quote, when you heal, that is exactly what you are learning. You are recognizing the changeless mind in your brother by realizing that he could not have changed his mind. You do not have the option of changing your changeless mind because your changeless mind is part of what? Your changeless mind is part of God's changeless mind. When you heal and change your perceptual mind so you accept your brother's changeless mind and your own changeless mind, you also perceive what? You perceive the Holy Spirit in your brother. Healing your brother, quote, is how you perceive the Holy Spirit in your brother. Perceiving the Holy Spirit in your brother reminds you of your brother's and your own changeless mind because of what about the Holy Spirit? Because the Holy Spirit never changes his mind in the mind of God. Quote, it is only the Holy Spirit in your brother that never changes his mind. Your brother can become sick because he can mistakenly believe what? He can believe that he can change his changeless mind. Your brother thinks he can change his mind, quote, or he would not perceive himself as sick. Just as your brother is unaware of his changeless mind, he is unaware of what? He is unaware of his true self that he shares with you. Quote, he therefore does not know what his self is. You can help to heal your brother by overlooking what in him? By overlooking what changes in him, such as his false beliefs and his outer form. You can also help to heal your brother by looking for what in him? By looking for his true changeless divine nature, including his changeless mind. Your changed perception of your brother has not changed him, but has done what? Your changed perception of your brother has merely accepted the true changelessness of his nature as the self. Quote, if you see only the changeless in him, you have not really changed him. Your brother may not be able to change his perceptual mind about himself and his sick condition, but you can do what? You can change your mind about his perceptual mind for him. Quote, by changing your mind about his for him, you help him do what? You help him undo what the ego has falsely taught about him and help him remember his changeless mind before the ego was made. Quote, by changing your mind about his for him, you help him undo the change his ego thinks it has made in him. Paragraph 9. As you can hear two voices, so you can do what? The full quote is, as you can hear two voices, so you can see in two ways. You can see guided by either the ego or guided by the Holy Spirit. What can you see that is the option you will never be able to love? This is the option of seeing the ego's illusions. The option of seeing guided by the ego, quote, shows you an image or an idol that you may worship out of fear, but will never love. What can you see that is the option you will be able to love? This is the option, guided by the Holy Spirit, of seeing the truth that you will understand and therefore love. The Holy Spirit's way of seeing, quote, shows you only truth, which you will love because you will understand it. You can love what is true because you understand it, and you understand the truth for what reason? You understand the truth because you appreciate the truth, which means you identify with the truth by accepting that truth is part of you, and so you love the truth in you. Quote, understanding is appreciation, because what you understand you can identify with, and by making it part of you, you have accepted it with love. The first part of this quotation is understanding is appreciation, and that quote is used in the title of today's podcast. And the full title is Understanding is Appreciation that Leads to Love. The Course wants you to apply the previous quotation by understanding and therefore appreciating your what? By understanding and appreciating your inherent true identity. You can make this awareness of your identity part of your awareness of yourself and can love the truth in you. With the help of the Holy Spirit, understanding will enable your mind to do what? Enable your mind to accept what you understand, appreciate it, identify with it, and love it. What is your mind? Your mind is light. God's, quote, light is what your mind is. When you consider that your mind is light, understanding should be natural for you because of what reason? Because light is understanding and you are light. Quote, understanding is light and light leads to knowledge. What do you and the Holy Spirit have in common regarding light? The common element is that you are light and the Holy Spirit is light. Quote, the Holy Spirit is the light in which Christ stands revealed. How are you and the Holy Spirit different in regard to light? The difference is the Holy Spirit is fully aware that He is light, but you are unaware of being light. Quote, the Holy Spirit is in light because He is in you who are light, but you yourself do not know this. Because you have mistakenly interpreted your identity and are unaware of being light, what is the task of the Holy Spirit? The Holy Spirit is your teacher who teaches you that you are Christ and you are light. The Holy Spirit provides you with the correct perceptual interpretation of your divine identity. Quote, it is therefore the task of the Holy Spirit to reinterpret you on behalf of God. Quote, the task of the Holy Spirit to reinterpret you means what? The task of the Holy Spirit reinterpreting you means the Holy Spirit reinterprets your identity by using perception to teach you truth in relation to your identity, such as the Course description of, quote, you who are truth. This means you yourself are the truth that you are seeking. The Holy Spirit wants you to accept in your perception what 3 specific means God used to create you as you truly are. The 3 specific means God used to create you were understanding, appreciation, and love. Quote, that is how God Himself created you, in understanding, in appreciation, and in love. The ego is incapable of what in relation to what it makes. The ego is incapable of understanding, appreciating, or loving what it makes. Quote, the ego is totally unable to understand this because it does not understand what it makes, does not appreciate it, and does not love it. Although the ego cannot identify with the illusions that it makes for the purpose of deception, it does identify with what? The ego identifies with what it takes away. Quote, it incorporates to take away. It literally believes that every time it deprives someone of something, it has increased. By only wanting what it takes, the ego is expressing what? The ego is expressing the 4th law of chaos. Quote, the ego values only what it takes. This leads to the 4th law of chaos, which, if the others are accepted, must be true. This seeming law is the belief that you have what you have taken. Why is it really impossible to keep what you take from others? Because your brothers are part of you, so what you take from them, you are taking from yourself. Quote, by this, another's loss becomes your gain, and thus it fails to recognize that you can never take away save from yourself. Although you cannot keep what you take, how can you manifest keeping? The only true way of keeping is through giving. because giving and receiving are the same and happen simultaneously, as is expressed in the following prayer. Quote, Father, I must return your love for me, for giving and receiving are the same, and you have given all your love to me. You need to develop your weakened ability to do what in relation to God? Quote, you need to develop your weakened ability to be grateful, or you cannot appreciate God. He does not need your appreciation, but you do. Why do you have a weakened ability to be grateful in relation to God and His kingdom? As a result of the separation, you lost the total awareness of knowledge, so you were no longer grateful to God for His creation of you. You no longer understood that you remain God's son, and you no longer identified yourself as being part of Him and His kingdom. After the separation, what entered your mind that blocks your ability to appreciate and therefore blocks your ability to love? Fear entered your mind. Quote, you cannot love what you do not appreciate, for fear makes appreciation impossible. After the separation, you experienced guilt for the first time and became afraid of God, making it difficult to return His love for you. So it is helpful for you to initially focus in meditation on what? To focus on being aware of receiving God's love for you. By focusing in meditation on God's love for you, you will be able to do what? You will be able to increase your gratitude and appreciation for God and release fear of Him so you can learn to love Him. You must return God's love for you if you want to what? If you want to keep His love in your full awareness. Quote, I must return it, meaning return God's love, for I want it mine in full awareness, blazing in my mind and keeping it within its kindly light, inviolate, beloved, with fear behind and only peace ahead. Because of the way God created you, you will increase God's kingdom in the same way by doing what? By understanding, appreciating, and loving your own creations. Quote, I have spoken often of the increase of the kingdom by your creations, which can only be created as you were. Remember earlier I mentioned that you were created in understanding, in appreciation, and love by God Himself. your creations are an expression of your joyful giving to God's kingdom, but they are also an expression of what? They are an expression of your joyful receiving, because the joy you give is the joy you receive. Quote, the whole glory and perfect joy that is the kingdom lies in you to give. Do you want to give it? If you do not give to the kingdom, you will be doing what? You will be depriving yourself of receiving your joy. Paragraph 10. You cannot completely cut yourself off from your remembrance of your Father because of the presence of what in your mind? The presence of the Holy Spirit and Jesus, who never forget the Father. Quote, you cannot forget the Father because I am with you, and I cannot forget him. If you forget about Jesus, you are forgetting what? You are forgetting your true self, that is also the self of Jesus. And in so doing, you are forgetting your Father. Quote, to forget me is to forget yourself and him who created you. You can help correct your brother's forgetfulness by doing what? By remembering Jesus and your Father for your brothers. Quote, your brothers are forgetful. That is why they need your remembrance of me and of him who created me. By remembering your brothers, you are helping them do what? You are helping them to change their minds about their identity, just as Jesus helped you change your mind about your identity that you share with him. Quote, through this remembrance, you can change their minds about themselves as I can change yours. Your mind is what? Your mind is God's light. Quote, God has lit your mind himself and keeps your mind lit by his light, because his light is what your mind is. What enables you to look into your brother's minds and bring more light into their awareness, just as Jesus brings more light into your awareness? What enables you to enlighten the minds of your brothers is the power of the light that your mind is. Quote, your mind is so powerful a light that you can look into theirs, meaning into your brothers' minds, and enlighten them as I can enlighten yours. Does Jesus share his body in Holy Communion as some Christian religions believe? No. Jesus, who is a spirit and not a body, says this belief is an ego-based illusion that is not true. Quote, I do not want to share my body in communion because this is to share nothing. Will I try to share an illusion with the most holy children of a most holy Father? What does Jesus want to share with you that is true and real? Jesus wants to share his mind, which is the mind of Christ. Quote, yet I do want to share my mind with you because we are of one mind, and that mind is ours. In this quotation, the word mind is with a capital M to indicate we're talking about the mind of Christ. The mind of Christ is one with the mind of God. And this is what, in relation to your mind, the mind of Christ, which is one with the mind of God, is your true God-given mind that you can see in everything, everywhere. Quote, see only this mind everywhere, because only this is everywhere and is in everything. What workbook lesson expresses seeing this mind that is everywhere? This is expressed in 2 workbook lessons. Workbook lesson 29, quote, God is in everything I see. And workbook lesson 30, quote, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. Your Christ mind, in the mind of God, is everything that is what? Your Christ mind, in the mind of God, is everything that is true and real. This mind, quote, is everything because it encompasses all things within itself. Blessed are you who perceive only this, because you perceive only what is true. Paragraph 11. Why does Jesus want you to come to him? Jesus invites you to come to him because he shares the one Christ mind with you, and because he wants you to open your mind to the awareness of light and truth within you. Quote, come therefore unto me and learn of the truth in you. Because you share the same light of the same Christ mind with all your brothers, you can heal your brothers by doing what? By truly seeing their divine nature. Quote, the mind we share is shared by all our brothers, and as we see them truly, they will be healed. Jesus asks you to let the light in your mind join with the light coming from Jesus. For what purpose? for the purpose of sending light to your brothers' minds. As you send light to your brothers' minds, Jesus and you will express gratitude and appreciation for the divine light in your brothers, which will enable your brothers to do what? This will enable your brothers to awaken to the light within their own minds. Quote, let your mind shine with mine upon their minds, and by our gratitude to them, make them aware of the light in them. When you express a miracle by sending love to your brother, how will your brother respond? Your brother will be grateful, and so he will send love back to you. When Jesus and you combine to send light to your brother's mind, how will your brother respond? Your brother will be grateful, and your brother will send light back to you and to the whole sonship who share the Christ mind with you. The light that you send to your brother, quote, will shine back upon you and on the whole sonship, because this is your proper gift to God. Why is this exchanging of light a gift to God? Because this sharing of light increases joy for everyone in God's kingdom. God, quote, will accept it and give it to the sonship because it is acceptable to him and therefore to his sons. Why did God create you individually? God created you for sharing, in which every individual he created adds to the joy of the whole kingdom. Quote, God, who encompasses all being, created beings who have everything individually, but who want to share it to increase their joy. Nothing can be increased except by sharing. That is why God created you. In contrast to the mistaken idea of sharing the body of Jesus in religious forms of communion, the sharing of light with your brothers is described by Jesus as what? Described by Jesus as, quote, true communion. Quote, this is true communion with the Holy Spirit, who sees the altar of God in everyone. And by bringing it to your appreciation, he calls upon you to love God and his creation. All parts of the sonship possess the same one Christ mind, the one self, the one Son of God. So what is the strength of the sonship? The sonship's strength is its wholeness and oneness. Quote, it should especially be noted that God has only one Son. If all his creations are his sons, every one must be an integral part of the whole sonship. The sonship in its oneness transcends the sum of its parts. If you truly appreciate and love one part of the sonship, how does that relate to the whole sonship? Because of the transcendental oneness of the sonship, your appreciation and love for one part of the sonship extend to the whole sonship. Quote, you can appreciate the sonship only as one. This is part of the law of creation and therefore governs all thought. The ego wants you to believe that you are an ego with a private mind, and so the ego wants you to believe what about love? The ego wants you to believe love is limited because you can share only some private thoughts of love with a limited number of egos and other private minds. Because you appreciate the sonship only as one, your apparently private thoughts of love are part of the law of creation that governs all thought. And therefore, what really happens to your thoughts of love? Your thoughts of love extend to the whole sonship. Quote, every loving thought held in any part of the sonship belongs to every part. It is shared because it is loving. The ego wants you to believe that you are limited to the ego itself and limited to the idea of having a separate and private self. But if you appreciate the sonship only as one, you will be accepting what? You will be accepting that you are not in fact limited by the ego's false perception of you. Quote, if you are part of God and the sonship is one, you cannot be limited to the self the ego sees. That was the last of the questions and answers portion of this podcast. Now I invite you to join with me in a 1-minute meditation. I ask you during this podcast to focus on the divine attribute of light. And we talked in this podcast about the idea that your mind itself is light, and you are light, and understanding is light. And when God created us, He gave us His divine light as our own divine light. So for this meditation on divine light, I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute. When the timer goes off, that will be the end of the meditation and the end of the podcast. Here we go together, focusing on divine light. Amen.